Welcome, welcome, welcome. Our first episode of Much Love with Keoki. This is the beginning of the Much Love family, an episode where you get a feel for the flow. It's about Keoki's story, where he came from, and how he became the artist he is today. Since this is our first episode, there are definitely some growing pains and some technical difficulties. The episode starts mid conversation, so my apologies for the mix. I hope you're still able to enjoy the episode. My name is David. Much love. Let's kind of take a step back and let's go over you. What's your background? So I kind of know the story, but let's put pen to paper. So tell me where you're from. Where did you grow up?
Whoo, it's a long story. Might need a
Yeah.
six pack of six pack of Sprite or something.
Yeah.
Wow. I come from a military family. My dad was in the army. Born in Hawaii, 1979. My dad joined the military right before that, and we began to move. Typical military life. We moved from Hawaii to Georgia. From Georgia, my dad was stationed at Fort McPherson out over here in Atlanta, and then from there we moved to Germany, where I went to elementary school. My earlier elementary school was in Germany. From Germany, we flew and moved over to El Paso, Texas. El Paso,
Wow.
Texas was my later elementary school. From El Paso, Texas, then we moved to Panama, Fort Clayton, Panama, where I went through my fourth, I say fifth, sixth, and seventh grade years. It's like
Okay.
fourth, fifth, something like that. And then my dad got out of the military just around 1991. And then we ended up going home to Hawaii. And then Hawaii, I ended up going to Hawaii starting the middle of my seventh grade year, right around the beginning of my eighth grade years when I started to go to school in Hawaii. And it was rough. It was rough for me because I wasn't raised local, like the quote unquote island style. Although I was Hawaiian by descent, we were raised more of the what we call in Hawaii the mainland or the haole. We call it the haole style, the American way. And
Okay.
so I spoke straight English. I had so my dad was really big on grammar, done on a lot of things. So we spoke straight English. In Hawaii, we have a type of language we have over there called pidgin. Pidgin language, not to go on too much of a tangent, but pidgin
No, go
language,
for it.
right? Like this whole recording is going to be a constant tangent.
Yeah.
That's what we should call it tangents or something like so the pidgin language is a Creole-ish kind of language. It's a combination of many languages. It's usually about six or seven languages.
Wow.
A long time ago, when the plantations first started, sugarcane and the pineapple plantations, a lot of the immigrants started to come to Hawaii. I mean, we needed Puerto Ricans to teach us how to farm the sugarcane, and then we also needed the Filipinos to teach us how to cultivate the pineapple. So we brought those two cultures, the Puerto Ricans, the Filipinos. Then the Portuguese came along with that, as well as the Chinese, as well as the Scottish, as well as all these other people that came to Hawaii. And then they put them all on the same plantation and told them work together. But yeah,
Yeah.
so they didn't. None of them spoke each other's language, so they had to create a language, which was is a very interesting language, and we can take a whole episode next time to go deeper into all of that. But so I didn't speak the pidgin language. I didn't speak the what we call the Brada Nakain Cause Lalat. You know what I mean? And it was interesting. So transitioning into Hawaii was hard. I had to fight my family. Like they constantly called me a foreigner. They put me down. They said I wasn't Hawaiian, wasn't like them and stuff. So it was really hard because we always felt different from the people here in the States. But when I went home, like we're not like them either. You know what I mean? That unfortunate kind of middle ground, right?
Yeah. I mean that's hard, not feeling a sense of fitting in, especially in those years. That's definitely rough.
Oh yeah, and also my dad was also one of those guys who he came from a very violent background, and my dad just never liked us fighting. So he always taught us to find a diplomatic way or a diplomatic solution. You know,
Hmm.
there's always a way of solving our problems without fighting. We just have to get past our pride. But in Hawaii, it's all about knuckle up. So yeah, so I
Wow.
had to learn to knuckle up hard, and I had to fight. A lot of times, majority of the time, it was my own family that really couldn't accept us as one of theirs, you know.
Really? Which side of the family?
It was my dad's side. My well, both sides actually. Just we weren't really that close to my mom's side. My mom's side, they had a whole nother set of problems, and my mom's side wouldn't accept us. Period, regardless of anything. They
Oh,
just it's something my mom had done. A lot of time. Once again, we can save those for
right,
other
right, right.
episodes. Yeah, but so I ended up fighting hard to get into Hawaii, and then eventually became the quote unquote local boy. You know, and then I graduated high school in Hawaii at Waianae High School out in 1998. And then from there, I joined the military. I joined the Army myself. Being a child, military brat, and traveling the world, I mean, the world has beauty in culture, in itself, in its surroundings, its environment. I just wanted to, one, get out and see the world, and two, I needed to get away from home. Home was just full of drugs. When my dad got home in 1991, my mom and dad were already active drug users from the
Hmm.
70s. So my parents have pretty much done everything in the book from the 1970s. You know, my dad, them weed was big, obviously, but all the other heavy stuff. My mom and dad were pretty steady cocaine addicts, which is crazy. Once again, we can leave it for another episode. But
Right.
like when we lived in Panama, oh my God, my dad was like selling cocaine like no tomorrow. It
A
was crazy.
trafficker.
Yeah, oh, big time, dude. Like I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if my dad did know like Pablo Escobar and those
Oh,
guys.
wow.
Yeah, my dad was pretty big in that. But I mean, that was when we were younger. But so my parents got into crystal meth, and we ended up homeless in Hawaii because my parents, their addiction had just plummeted us right straight into homelessness. And you know, it's one of those things where you bounce from family to family at first, but when you have a drug addiction, it tends to kill relationships.
Yeah.
And so as kids, all we could do was follow our parents, and we just lived in the. It's almost like being dragged by a boat and just living in the wake of their their destruction, and it was hard. Our family didn't know whether to hate us, love us, or whatever, because of the relationships that my parents had built. And it was interesting. So I needed to get off the rock. A lot of my cousins were also big drug dealers, and it's common in Hawaii. This isn't like isolated to just my family or
Right.
anything. It is a big issue in Hawaii, and so I needed everyone in Hawaii says they need the opportunity to get off the rock, and that's what it is. And so I had to seek my opportunities. So I joined the military and I left, and I was a young crazy boy who had crazy parents whose whole high school life was jacked up.
Right.
So I joined the military and got married to my high school sweetheart, Elena Aquino, and that's where we had our son, my son Jesse, who's currently works with me in my tattoo shop. My son's 24 years old now. It makes me feel old as oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah.
but we ended up getting married while I was in the military, and lived a crazy life. Deployed, went different places, went to Korea, all over the United States and stuff like that. Where I was in the military through September 11th. September 11th
Oh,
happened.
wow.
Yeah, I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, out in the Fourth Infantry Division out there when the day that it all happened. And man, we could save that for an episode because that's a long story, but it's some dope stuff. Like it was crazy to watch the world literally flip upside down. You know. Then from there, I joined the military. I ended up getting out of the military and getting a divorce. Made some pretty crazy decisions in my life, and ended up coming back home to Hawaii. When I came home, I ended up homeless again because when you're getting a divorce, you can't live with your in-laws.
No. I mean, even when you're married, you don't want to live with your in-laws.
Yeah, touche. So I ended up coming home. We got separated, my son's mother and I, and then I lived on the beach homeless and ended up moving, bouncing around from family to family as I picked my feet up and ended up getting on my own. I worked at several odd end jobs, security guard job, and then I ended up an entertainer at the hotels in Waikiki. My brothers and I were spinning rifles with the in high school as well as into the Hawaii State Kings Guard. My brother became a Hawaii State Kings Guard member in the late '90s, and
What's that?
the Hawaii State Kings Guard is like an exhibition drill team where they
Okay.
spin M1903 rifles. They originally started, I want to say, back in the 1970s. They were where they did exhibition, but before that, they were a part of the Royal Guard of the King and Queen. And so after the monarchy and everything got overthrown, everything, the Royal Guard didn't know what to do. I guess I heard the stories, and then they ended up an exhibition drill team. And so they changed the face of drill. The Hawaii State Kings Guard just brought a different style of drill to out there. So for everybody who knows, they know it's pretty dope. But we were a part of that. So me and my brothers were also doing that, and because we were spinning rifles, our uncle ended up getting us into going to the hotels and spinning fire knife and dancing hula. So
Oh,
yeah, so we ended up working at the Sheraton Waikiki, the Sheraton Moana Surfrider, Princess Kaiulani, a lot of different hotels out in Waikiki, and we would start dancing hula as well as singing, playing music, and I eventually ended up getting a job over at the Waimea Valley Falls Park, which is like a waterfall over on the north side of the island by Waimea, and I was the MC of a dive show that they had over there, and we'd have the guys that would come and cliff dive off the cliffs into the waterfall. I think it was one of the highest in the world. They jumped. I think the highest one was from a 70-foot cliff. Um, where
did you do
Acapulco,
that?
I did not. They wouldn't let us up there. but I think Acapulco, the highest they go is I think 35 or 45 feet, where our guys were jumping from 70 feet, 365 days a year. So
Wow.
it was awesome, pretty crazy cool. I'd love to be a part of that. Then I ended up getting back into the military to kind of finish out some stuff that I needed to take care of, and then I came out and became a tattoo artist.
That so lots of ground to cover. I mean, jumping around, a, a really storied past. Um, so how from the military and odd jobs and working in entertainment and hotels did you get into tattoos?
Well, back in we're the '90s kids that that Gen X crazy generation, and in the '90s, tattooing worldwide was starting to have a resurgence. Tattooing culturally, the Samoans Alaiva'a and his brother, I think. Patello, I think the third. I'm so jacking that up, and I apologize. But Aleva and his brother them started to go out and reteach tattooing. So tattooing was big, even in America. Had that the '90s tribal. Everyone was doing that tribal kind of look and stuff.
Right.
And my best friend back in high school was actually tattooing all the boys in high school. And we were just a bunch of high school kids that just wanted to smoke some weed sometimes, and then maybe go to 7-Eleven and get some nachos after when you get the money. So yeah, obviously our parents were like already druggies, but they're like, hey, I'm not going to support your habit. You got to support your own habit. So my best friend was tattooing all the guys in school for like $20, $30. And his uncle went to prison and taught him how to make a prison tattoo machine. So we'd make these
Oh,
prison tattoo machines, and then he would tattoo the boys. Like we'd use guitar string as needles and stuff, and use some India ink that we'd go and buy at one of the art stores, and then we'd sit there and tattoo out of the house. But in high
that's
school,
crazy.
yeah, no, that was super nuts, dude. And then I've always been a good artist ever since I was growing up, a young kid. I loved art. Art had always interested me, and my best friend realized that I was a good artist. And my best friend is kind of what we call like a tattooer, yeah, instead of a tattoo artist. He's kind of a tattooer that can he can copy anything.
Okay.
But to create things at that time, he really wasn't that versed with it. Like nowadays, like he's a beast. He can do tattoos. He can draw his own stuff on now. It's crazy. But when we were in high school, he used to ask me like, "Hey man, could you like draw this picture up for me?" me, and then I would draw it, and then he would take it, stencil it, and then he would tattoo somebody with it, and then we kind of split the money. He would take like,
Ah.
he'd take like 70%, give me like 30 or something like that, and then we'd all go to 7-Eleven. And so in Hawaii, in 7-Eleven, the cheese and the chili was unlimited as long as you bought the nachos. So if you took you open it, it's got like a little like bowl with a lid on it. So if you take it off and you fill the lid with chili, you fill the bowl with cheese, and then you just have the bag. All you do is buy an extra bag of chips, and you have unlimited chili cheese nachos kind of thing. So,
Find a way to make it work.
oh yeah, man. So that was it. So we just do that, smoke a little bit, get high, sit down, and eat nachos for munchies. But and so we used to do that, and stuff. And then so when I got out of the military the second time, my friend was still tattooing. He'd been tattooing. He obviously progressed a lot. And so when I got out of the military, I was homeless again. I didn't have any job or anything like that. And I was thinking about getting back in the military. And I didn't know yet. So I didn't want to get like a job, and then I'd have to, quit the job to go and join back in the military if I wanted to. So my friend was like, dude, why don't you just become a tattoo artist? And I was like, a tattoo artist? He's like, yeah, dude, you could just work at home. You can make some money, and then you're all good. And I was like, I mean, mind you, at the time, I was still homeless. So I was bouncing through jobs here and there, still homeless, living on the beach in Hawaii, in Maile, out in Hawaii on the west coast of Oahu. And I had a job at that time working for ACAL Security. It was like a security job, and I was just one of the field supervisors. And my friend talked me into it. He's like, bro, like, it all started, like, just we went to his house, and we used to do, I mean, man, it's like the timeline goes, like, there's so much stuff. Like, I could sit here for hours, but I'm trying to, like, jump to different pieces, but I need to
Right.
get to the piece to get the thing. So we used to go to people's houses and do what we call tattoo parties. Now, a tattoo party is where we'd show up at the house at about Friday night, maybe Saturday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they would line people up for the weekend. So let's say we'd say, all right, our rate is I'll tattoo you for 3 hours for $200. Whatever we can do in 3 hours, then that's it. Your time's up. Next guy. And then we just run them the whole weekend long. Just keep running, just stack one guy after another and just keep going. You know what I mean? Just enough
Yeah.
to reset, keep going, reset, keep going. And we do that Saturday, Sunday, maybe finish Monday morning. And you did a good weekend. You probably made about 2,000, maybe not too
Yeah.
bad. Some money, some good money. So we would do those tattoo parties. But what he would do, because I wasn't tattooing yet, he would have me draw the design and stencil it, and then I would put it on the person, and then I would hand them to my friend. He would tattoo, and then it's kind of an assembly line, right? I'll
Right.
just line them up, draw designs. Well, one day after we had a long weekend at a tattoo party, we're sitting at his house, stoned off our trees, just kicking back, and he's like, "Dude, like, bro, can you tattoo me?" And I was like, tattoo you? I was like, I don't even know how to tattoo. He's like, man, I tattoo like everybody, but I got nobody to tattoo me. So he's like, can you tattoo me? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like,
Yeah.
oh. I mean, it's freaky. I used to watch him do it. It's fine because he's doing it, but I never wanted. I don't know. I didn't have an interest in actually tattooing. I love the art part of it, right? Um,
That's an
so
honor, though.
yeah, it was super cool. My best friend, so he set up his tattoo machine, set up everything there at his house, and then I took a marker and I drew some designs on his arm, and then he said, "All right, this is what you do. You got the machine, you wet your rag, put it over here in this hand, you dip it in the ink, and you do this." And he pretty much walked me through the whole process. And my first tattoo is a half sleeve from my friend's shoulder to his elbow. The first tattoo I've ever done was a half sleeve, and
What?
yeah,
That's
dude.
nuts.
Yeah, now that I think about it now, I'm a tattoo artist that's been doing this for 23 years now. Like I look at it now and I'm like, man, that was a massive piece for my first tattoo.
This
I just
that must have been nerve wracking.
That was nerve wracking, but I enjoyed it because it was almost like people who cook or people who create things. When you create scenes with your hands, or when you build it yourself, you just have a pride in it. And me seeing this tattoo come to life on my friend's arm, I just got caught in it. I loved it. I fell in love with the process. It looks super dope on my friend. To this day, he still has that tattoo on his arm. I don't show anybody. I'm like, no, 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 don't forget it. And you know what? Tell you the truth, like out of like tattooing and stuff like that, like for that being my first tattoo, it was not bad at all. I mean, I look at it now and I'm like, it was decent. I could straighten up some lines a little bit, but it really, the design concept was there. The flow was a little bit different, but I learned more of my flow later on as I moved on. But I didn't do half bad of a job without an apprenticeship, and just my friend just throwing me quote unquote under the bus. You know what I mean? It was pretty interesting.
That's that's sick. I mean, to come right out the gate with something big like that.
Yeah, and then after that, I
How'd
liked
you
it.
come up with the design?
I just drew whatever was on the top of my head. I just drew it all in his arm with a pen with a marker, and then when I saw what I liked, I was like, "This is it. I'm gonna do this."
How long did it take?
Oh, I don't even remember. All I know is that it took forever, like totally forever. But you know what? We sat there all freaking day, and he was my best friend from high school. Like when I got married, before I went in the military, he was my best man at my wedding. So I mean, we knew each other a lot. I knew his parents, knew his grandparents. He used to play music a lot. He was in high school playing in bars because his dad had the band. So he would play in
Oh,
bars with his dad. Yeah, and so we'd go out, watch them and stuff like that, and then we'd all play music together in high school and stuff. It was super cool.
is that when you started playing the ukulele?
Yeah, that's when I started playing the ukulele because of my good friend, my friend Carl, the guy who actually, his name is Carl My Wilhelm, and he's the guy who taught me how to tattoo, but also was the inspiration for me to play music myself. I used to watch him, a friend of ours, Samson Souza, used to hang out in high school, and they used to play in Wina High School out by the chorus room in the back by the library. There was like a little river in the back of the chorus room, and we just hang out. We were like the degenerates, the kids who smoked weed and did all that kind of stuff. We were the rejects that hung out in the back of the buildings,
Right.
but we used to do that, and he was actually my inspiration for playing music, and then my inspiration to get into tattooing. He's my catalyst, the guy who kind of pushed me to do that, and I found myself in tattooing and in music, and it's been nothing but a blessing ever since.
Yeah, it's allowed you to express yourself in a really deep way. I mean that's it it's very hard for people that don't have that way of getting things out. It just stays bottled in. So being able to express yourself and to put it out there in a way that others understand, it's another way of communicating. It's actually a very deep way of communicating because you get more out there. I mean that's really deep.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely is. I guess through tattoo, like tattooing saved my life. I used to tell people tattooing saved my life with the constant ups and downs in life. Me going through divorce, changing jobs all the time, losing my son and his mother in the divorce, my parents being drug addicts. Bouncing around the world, not belonging to even your own people or other people. It was really a hard thing to emotionally grasp my life. You know what I mean? And so tattooing allowed me to emotionally let out, and you have what we call in the tattoo industry a captive audience. Literally, they're captives. No.
Right. They're
So
not going anywhere.
yeah, they're not going anywhere. So I was able to talk it out, a lot of my life problems, and I started to connect. And it's not like I just dove out and just spoke my problems. You would find people whose energy was there, and as I'm tattooing them, they're dealing with their problems, and their tattoos would be kind of a representation of strength for them to go through their problems. So I would have them express their problems, what they're doing, and then I would find an elation. I would find out where I elate to that, and then we would share our struggles in life, and through that sharing of the struggles, my struggles in life, I think tattooing has allowed me to properly process and push all the things that I've been through, and turn it for a positive, and understand the positive, because that's what we try to do. I'm trying to help people through their problems in life with dealing with pain, and as we're going through, so we're talking about it, but we help each other. And so going through that, I realized, we can't be dwelling in that. So it helped me to gain more of a positive perspective to life, and thus has helped me to how would you say, deal with my past. hard for a lot of people is dealing with our past.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's something that I've struggled with, and it to be challenged at getting it out there. For me, I do therapy, so I mean, I talk about my problems. I've talked about my problems since I was 16. So I'm good at just putting it all out there and knowing that if I censor myself, the problem's not going to get fixed. So it's really interesting to see other people how they put things out there. It doesn't have to just be in a therapy session. It could be on paper. It could be in music. It
Hmm.
could be on someone else. I
Right.
mean that's really a special way of doing it, and I really I'm in awe of being able to express things that way. I can't draw. I you know futz around on the bass and guitar, but uh, if someone heard me play, by myself, no one's going to understand what I'm doing. But I have a feeling that when I would listen to you or look at what you do, you can get that sense of emotion. You can get that meaning behind it. I think that's that's special.
Yes, no, the connection with people with that. I mean, it's all the symbolism behind it too. It's that we go through pains in life, and so it's just a different type of pain. That's all it is. But I have a friend who is a counselor, and he was telling me, he says, Kyoki, the hardest thing for a counselor to do is to get somebody to open up and get to an emotional state. To open up and get into that, because literally the things that change us in life are emotional connection to anything, whether it's positive or negative, creates change. So what associates something helps us to change, right? So he says, to help people deal with that, you have to get them to that emotional state to allow them to process out of it. You know what I mean? To get
Right.
back to that feeling. So he says, me putting people in pain immediately gets them into an emotional state.
Oh, that's
Once
true.
Yes, so once they're in an emotional state, when I talk to them, it hits them harder, if you know what I mean. So
Oh,
they
absolutely.
they absorb it different, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That does.
Yeah,
You're you're open, literally. Your skin is open. You're open to dealing with certain things, and that's why tattoos can be very emotional.
right, and it's the vulnerability of it, right? Humans are us. We're all built off of emotion, right? We're built emotions, the pains. We actively fight and try to do things to avoid pain. Pain and emotions are one of the biggest parts of being human. Us and that. So if I can help people to understand that and go through that pain, and as they're going through the pain, when you coach them through the pain, you set another presence or understanding with pain, because they have a connection to pain. When I get pain, I react a particular way. When I get pain, this happens. It becomes habits, and then people tend to tuck in emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. But if I can get them to that pain and then coach them out of it, then from there they have a different way of getting out of that mental state. And then we can go this. So going through tattoos and being able to take them, maybe even if they don't consciously understand it, I put them into this state, and then from there I help them out of that state. So I am helping their mind to be able to learn how to deal with pain, regardless of what type of pain that comes.
A spiritual guide, if you will.
Yeah, and it helps because we are habitual creatures, and how we deal with things is our habits. And sometimes we have a habit of, every time we get into pain, we react a particular way. Some people very aggressive, some people defensive, some people they become more introverted, some people more extroverted. Everybody deals with it different. But if I can kind of help them kind of be aware of something, maybe they're having a hard time coming out of something emotionally, maybe uh the loss of a loved one, or maybe a traumatic event that's gone in their life and that's happened, that I can help coach them out of the pain they're in. They can in themselves coach themselves out of the pain or the psychological connection that they have for something else, and it helps them through.
That's deep, man. I mean that's awe inspiring. That means a lot. I know it did for me, and I'm sure it's meant a lot for everyone that you've tattooed. I mean, it's not something to take lightly. I mean, that's a real gift to be able to do that for people.
Nothing but a blessing, brother. It's nothing but a blessing. And I don't know how. It's one of those, like, people get that kind of that imposter syndrome. I don't know how, where I'm a guy who's been through so much hell in my life, and who am I to talk to anybody about anything in life other than the point that I can almost elate to every single person out there from the mock side. Tell a friend of mine I've lived what seemed like 10 lifetimes in my
But
one
that's
life.
it. That's it exactly. The whole reason that you're able to do this, and the whole reason that it makes sense, is because of the life you lived, or the lives that you've lived. You know, the journey that you've been through helps you guide others, helps you talk to people in a different way that someone that just had a normal straight upbringing, if you will, that they just couldn't put out there. And maybe other people go through pain, and it's bottled up, and I mean, part of what makes it so special is your ability to bring it not only out of them, but out of yourself. And sharing that part of you makes them more receptive, makes them more receptive to the tattoo, to the meaning behind it, to the world that you're trying to connect on. So I mean, it is your past, it is who you are, that allows you to do what you do.
Yeah, and I think going through and telling my story a million times has helped me to understand my story more and what I've been through, and to deal with my pains. Where some people will be like, Kyoki, like, you're just saying like your whole life, like your parents on drugs and all that stuff, like you just say it like it was nothing. It's like, no, it's not nothing, but it is something that has happened, and there's nothing I can do today that can change that. It's just
Nope.
it's just the background, it's a story. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It has helped to make me today, but it's what I do today that makes me who I am for tomorrow, right? And
Yep.
I love it, but it's also because I don't fear the ridicule of people who, it's like, I don't think my life was worse than anybody else. Everybody, like they say, pain is subjective, that to somebody, just, their mom scolding them could be like the worst thing in the world, where some people, their dads, or somebody beat the living hell out of them, or they've been abused physically, or other things. Pain comes in a million forms, and it's just is what it. But so to me, it's like everybody has that in their life. As much as we want to think that we're different, we're not. We're all humans. Everybody goes through the same things that is in life. That life is pain. It is what it is. It's growth. Pain is growth. Without resistance, we don't have growth. Resistance creates pain, like going to a gym, pushing weights. Life pushes against us like resistance that creates pain, but that pain creates growth. And I think with that, I've learned to talk about it so much that I understand that it was just a thing. It just happened, and it'll probably happen 1,000 times. I'll probably go through 1,000 more pains in life, but now I know how to deal with that pain.
No, and by being able to get your story out, it definitely helps others. But there's a deeper part for you, that sharing it is getting it out of just your head. So you're not just living in this play that just keeps going over and over again. You've broken the cycle by sharing it, by getting it out there. It's cathartic to be able to release yourself from that. And I think that the only way to do that is to be honest. For me, part of the other podcasts that might be out there eventually, is me telling my story. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain amount of anonymity that I do want to hold on to, because I am a little scared of perceptions of others, but I know that on a base level, just sharing it is getting it out of my head,
Mm-hmm.
and that keeping it in there is not a good place to be. So I think that it's integral to what we're doing, and to the progress that we make, is by sharing our story, and it helps us and it helps others, and that's one of the goals of this whole podcast. One of the main reasons behind this is to share the story, and in the hopes that somebody will pick this up, listen to it, that they weren't expecting to hear something that they hear inspiration, they hear something they relate to, they hear something that makes them laugh, they hear something that makes them cry, whatever it
Yes.
is, bringing out that emotion like you were talking about, that making someone kind of deal with their emotions by bringing it out. I think that's one of the healthiest ways of doing it. I mean, you can escape in a million different ways: drugs, rage, video games, whatever it is. You can run and hide, but only by getting it out there are you able to face it and move forward. And I think that my hope is that that's what this does for other people, in the way that it has helped us.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like it's like, you know, uh, like the bad things that have gone in our past are like dirty laundry. And you can leave that dirty laundry in a hamper and you can tuck it away in the farthest back into your closet. But eventually that smell is going to end up coming out. And you're going to smell that smell of that dirty laundry or trash, or you got that trash bag that all that raw food that's in there says, say, eventually it's going to be there. Well, we have to take trash out and we have to take the laundry out of the basket and we have to wash it, to deal with it, to allow it to be cleaned, and just us to bring it out. Once again, like you're saying, it has to come out. It has to come out in order for us to sort it, to clean it, and put it back in the right way. And when we clean our laundry, then our house, we can hide it with all air fresheners that we want, or the different things in life where people dive into other vices and things that go and try to help them fight it. But until you take that trash out, until you take out that laundry out of that closet and actually take it out and clean it or do what you need to do with it, it's just going to sit there and keep rotting.
So along your path, you've gone through tons of ups and downs, and you've gotten to a place where you've started to find yourself, and you've found a way to express yourself, both through music but also through tattooing. Tell me about how you made that leap into turning your expression, your art, into something, into a career.
Oh man, it, man, it took such a turn, but it's like really like a distinct time. Uh, I was tattooed for about 10, maybe 12 years before I went started tattooing out in California, out in San Francisco. Um, excuse me. And San Francisco was always a place that I loved. I'm a 49er fan, and I just love it there. So San Francisco was a big thing. But I started tattooing some friends out there, and there was a gentleman I met who happens to be like my brother. He's family with me now. My friend Zeus 42. He's part of the 42 family, big 42s out there. And Zeus and his wife came to get tattooed by me, and Zeus had lost his son to leukemia.
Oh.
And so we wanted to tattoo something on him to represent his son. His son had this little shark toy, like the little where you squeeze the handle and the shark mouth goes open and closes, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
That was his son's favorite toy as they were going through everything they were going through. And I tattooed this tiki to represent his son, and then a shark over the shoulder of the tiki and everything like that, which is super cool. And then when he went to go look at it in the mirror, um, he just broke down crying, and it just, it was the impact of that tattoo on him. Like, it just reminded him of his son and everything, and it was at that moment that I realized that this could mean it impacts at such a deeper level. Not to
Right.
say that I thought it was a superficial thing. I just said it's tattoos. Tattoos are dope. It's what our people did, and then I found what we call the mana, or the strength, the power behind it, and how it can move the soul, and how music and everything moves the soul. And so my tattooing is the same way, how it can move the soul. And then from there, I got more interested in how I could help people and move their soul in a positive way. And then I started to go deeper into what I tattoo and how I do it, and how I would tell my stories, and everything. And then it came down to I went to go speak at this conference in 2018, this Explore Tattoo conference. It's a tattoo artist conference. They just go and kind of like hear a whole bunch of speakers, and the speakers speak on their style of tattooing, maybe their theory, method, and stuff like that. And I was one of the speakers in this particular event, and everybody wanted to hear about tattooing, Polynesian tattooing, and stuff like that. So it was a really big thing for me, because I'm representing all of my Polynesian people as I went up and spoke in front of these people. So before the event, I ended up studying on Polynesian tattoos a little bit more, on the designs, what it meant to each culture and stuff. And I think the first one I looked up was the triangle. And the triangle, it means something different for the Hawaiians, the Samoans, the Tongans, the Fijians, and
Oh,
everybody.
really?
Yeah, oh yeah, they all have different symbolism. And so as I was studying that and reading up these tattoo meanings, then I realized through my studies that there were triangles in African tattoos, there were triangles in Native American tattoos, there were triangles in Japanese tattoos. And I was like, okay, hold on, wait, what's going on here? So I'm like, so how is this symbol, or this triangle, capable of transcending culture without somebody saying, you stole my triangle? Because that's a big thing nowadays. Everybody wants to claim, this is mine, this belongs to us, we did it first, we did it. Everybody wants to claim. So it's like, so how does this triangle go from culture to culture and mean something completely different, but nobody's saying you stole my triangle? So I started to read on it. I pondered on it, pondered on it, thought about it months and months and months. And then I started to realize that it's triangle. A triangle is a gift from nature. We see a triangle in a mountain. We see a triangle in a tree. So many shapes in the world. We see circles with the sun. We see shapes of waves and motions and waves. The rising and fall of the tide. We see the wind as the wind blows and different direction, how dirt will fly in the air. Mother nature gives us these natural shapes. These shapes are what we used as people, as ancient people, to symbolize the things that we saw in life. The nature, it is literally a tool of, or something that has been passed around. I started to think of a triangle as like a triangle is like a rock. A rock sits on the ground and it does nothing. The rock is moved by the wind when it blows it. It's moved by the water when the water moves it. The rock just sits there. But it's when we pick up the rock and we throw it at somebody, the rock becomes a weapon. When we pick up the rock and we put it into a wall, the rock becomes a foundation. So I started to think that it was the purpose and the intent by which we used that rock that gave it its strength and its power. And all around the world, you can find rocks. Rocks are a tool, a gift from Mother Nature. They're just there. And each one of these symbols, because in the end, it's just a triangle.
Right.
It's just a rock. It means nothing. It is a shape. But when you put purpose to something and you put intent to something, then you give it that purpose. You give it what we call mana, and that strength, that power. And when you have belief in something, which comes down to religion, that's the best example of it. When you believe in something, it has power. A cross is just two pieces of wood stuck across, to each other.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
but it's just two pieces of wood until you put the belief that it is connected to your religion. Then that piece of wood, that relic, becomes a symbol of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's the power behind it. So then I started to realize that, and then be like, oh, okay. So how I used my patterns was the most important way, and how you put them together will also have your signature to it, which then can identify you and a group of people, or a particular group of people. Like, you can look at all the people that I tattoo, and there's going to be a signature to my tattoo, and they can almost say like, "Hey, you're the Keokis." You know what I mean? Like, it's that's what culture is. Culture is a group of people. The definition of culture is the characteristic features of everyday life shared amongst a group of people in the same place in the same time. So when we're all getting tattooed something similar, we do something the same way. You create a culture. We all put our hat backwards and we all walk around the neighborhood with our hats on backwards. That's a culture. Culture is your environment. And so that culture, we can be identified by ways that we dress, ways that we speak, ways that we move, dance, and the way our art is displayed. All of these things can be signifiers or signal of a particular cultures. And so that how it's done is it, but the strength and the power behind it is what it came to me. And so now all I do is take my culture, my ancestry, my Hawaiian side, and what I see that our Polynesian people did, and their way of moving these patterns is familiar to me. So I move my patterns in the way and the shape that I would do with my people, but my meanings are for the individual and not for anybody else. You know what I mean? That power is in the belief that I give that person when we do that one tattoo, and that's where my tattooing just started to explode, because now you have intent. When you have intent, now you have true power behind what you do, you know?
What were some of the meanings of the triangles? That's really interesting to me.
Oh, that was it. I mean, it's one of those things where they say in the tattoo industry, even in the poly tattoo, you find 10 guys with a triangle, and each triangle will mean something different. One guy will say his triangle represents the mountain that he came from. Somebody was born on, let's say, Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, these big mountains, or Haleakala in Maui. This represents the mountain I'm from. Or one guy will say, this triangle or these four triangles represent my four brothers. You know what I mean? Or this triangle here represents the grounding of my family and stuff. So it all of it represents, or the trees from, let's say a guy has tons of triangles around him. He says this represents the tree of the forest where I was raised up in the Northwest or something. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
comes
yeah.
down to, again, it's your belief in that triangle that gives the triangle any sort of power or any sort of strength. Is your belief in what that triangle represents, not the triangle itself, but what it represents. The triangle is just a symbol of that representation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll come up in later podcasts. But so in the program that I'm in, um, the triangle represents the broader the base, the higher the freedom.
Hmm. Okay.
That's just one of the sayings. So the triangle, a circle with a triangle in the center is the sign for the is the symbol for the program that I'm in, the 12-step program, and the triangle is the broader the base of the triangle, the taller the triangle. So the broader the base, the higher the freedom.
Wow, that's super cool. I like that. Like the symbolism behind that. Just without foundation, without a base, without a ground, you can't build up. You know what I mean? So, no, I get it. That's awesome, brother.
Learn something new. That that
Yeah.
that'll be my next tattoo.
Yeah, let's do it, dude. Let's do it. It's one of those things. It's that, because when people have that symbolism in their life and everything, they can find a deeper connection to things in life, and especially in this world where there's so much separation from digital technology and everything. We have less physical, emotional connection. There's a lot of disconnect in this world today, but to find people who can find a connection that deep to anything is really just a positive. Find that deep, now that connection. Now, what type of connection is that? Is it a deep negative connection, or is it
Right.
deep positive connection? And we can always take any connection and change it either way. You just got to understand how to do that and to get to that. And I think like my life's journey now is to, no matter what people have gone through, is to connect that positive connection with everything. And then, I tell people the tattoo is the just the product that comes from the exchange of two energies, and the product that we build together through this energy is that tattoo, and the tattoo is the permanent reminder of that moment that we've had, and in growth.
That's dope. That is.
Yeah, I have a guy who I tattooed, a really, 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 really good friend of mine, my friend Chris Tuff, and came to me, and he was in a pretty crazy time in life. He was wanting to reground himself. He Life was getting crazy, and he said, I just want three individual lines or hula hoops wrapping around my forearm. And he said, I wanted to represent my wife and my two daughters. And he says, I want this on my body. But I was told, he said he went to like a couple tattoo parlors, and they're like, well, the guy who can draw the straightest lines like that would be probably Keoki, because he does a lot of that tribal stuff. So he came to me, and he's like, I want these three lines. And I was like, I mean, okay, kind of boring, but okay. And he started to ask me about what I did and the symbolism and my tattooing. And I talked to him about my Polynesian tattooing, and we ended up tattooing this band around these bands, the three bands around his forearm that represent his wife and his two daughters. And then there's a part in it also that represents like a symmetry where he is one twin. He has a twin brother, and
Okay.
his wife has a twin sister. So they're sets of twins, and this was the base of his life. Then from there, he had a foundation to kind of ground himself on. Then from there, as he went through his life, things started to move forward. He ended up writing a book called The Millennial Whisperer, which went to a top seller, which got him around the world talking to major companies like Nike
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, he speaks at all these massive companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, and he speaks to them about how to incorporate the millennials into the workspace and everything like that. And then from there, he came and got more tattoos, and he started moving forward, and more tattoos, and started moving forward. And then he's like, Kyoki, every time my life gets hard, every time things seem like I'm gonna struggle, I sit down and I look at my tattoos, and I remember the grounding that we had. I remember the talks that we had, everything that the motivational speaking, everything that we've had together in those moments. And he says that reminds me to get back up and keep going. And this guy is like unbelievable right now. I think he just finished writing his second book called Savior Asks. Once again, his name is Chris Tuff, and I think he's working on his third book right now. And just an unbelievable guy, traveling the world, speaking and just sharing nothing but love. He's working with this guy Raymana from Tahiti, and a lot of other guys with some great stuff, and just a big impact in life. And he always tells me, he's like, Kilky, every time I get up on stage in front of all these multi-million dollars companies, he says, I speak about you. He said, because you have impacted me in my life more than you think you know. And he says, with my tattoos, it is the permanent accountability partner that we have that helps us to continue to grow. And that's what I do now, brother. That is my life, is to leave these permanent accountabilities for people, these tattoos. And I always get my talks like how me and you did, just get real deep philosophy and
Right.
everything, because they're going to remember those talks every time they look at their tattoo, and hopefully it'll help them fight through their problems in life.
That those would be great conversations to have on, because one of the things I wanted to do, one of the the themes, I kind of planned out for all of this, is to have you, the person that got the tattoo, either while they're getting it or after the fact, and then just talk about the meaning behind it. Not only, the superficial meaning, but what does it mean to you when you look back, when you are what wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you see that tattoo? What does it elicit from you? What does it mean to you to have that tattoo today, which might be different than when you got the tattoo? I mean, I'm sure people that get tattoos, 30, 40 years ago, the tattoo has a different meaning today than it did back then. and it would be real deep to see that transformation of the meaning of the tattoo, but to hear others' stories of that, I think that would be a real cool thing to pursue, as we talk about this, in the future. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things is that what a lot of people don't understand is that like when I came up here to the states from Hawaii to the what we call the mainland up here in the continental United States, it was a total different culture of tattooing where what I'm talking about of tattooing has been going on for over 4,000 years. So the culture of tattooing has always been that. America is the only place that has changed that. The America is the only place where that tattooing, well, other Japan too, in many ways, where their thing, but it's because they would mark their prisoners with tattoos. So tattoos were symbolized with that. But a lot of things, a lot of cultures. But for the Polynesian cultures and for the island cultures, it was an anchor for our societies. It was an
Oh,
anchor where a person, when the chief in Samoa got his malufie or his tattoo that he had on his legs, the real big chief tattoo, the call it. He would also ordain other guys, his other chiefs, to wear these particular tattoos. And when you wore those tattoos, you were considered almost like knighted by the king. You were like knighted by the Queen of England, you know?
oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and so the people who wore these tattoos were considered what they call a sungaimiti. A sungaimiti is a person of honor, an honorable citizen. And so when people saw these tattoos in Polynesia, they knew one, you were respected by the king. Two, that you were a good person. I can ask you for help, or I can come to you. You are somebody in a leadership position. So it's like almost like wearing a police uniform or military uniform. The respect of it was high. So the Polynesians in our tattoos, we have always had high regard. And whenever you wore those tattoos, you were bound to live a life of integrity. That we were bound by that. That tattoo represented that. And I tried to teach that more even with my tattoos. And people like, if you're going to wear these tattoos, understand that the people who wore these thousands of years ago wore them for integrity. These tattoos anchored societies where nowadays it is an oppression to society. It's people who is like, oh, it's a alternate life form where we're rebels to society. But when we were growing up, well, not us growing up, but thousands of years ago in Polynesia, the tattoos were the anchor to that society. They were the permanent accountability of morals and values. And we can go into another episode later where I'll actually
Right.
describe a lot of the tattoos and
Yeah,
how,
definitely.
yeah, and how like the Samoans, they would look at their tattoo, and each line in the tattoo, there would be certain parts that they would look at that reminded them of the land that they were responsible for. It reminded them of the
Oh,
people that they must feed, the people they must protect. It reminded them of their place in society, saying, I am here, but I am also, regardless of how high I am in life, I am still meant to serve. And I will always be at the bottom, although people look at me at the top. It's learning how to serve. So it teaches morals and values and our virtues in life that we pass on went on with these with our tattoos. And so America, or these, America, we're the youngest culture out there. We're the youngest, kind of thing. And it's one of those like where we're just catching up to the rest of the world. You know what I mean? In what the power of true culture is. America has never, I don't think America has really solidified and anchored what she could call her culture. What is
no,
American culture? No, no, we've been just flooded by many different cultures, but we haven't,
exactly.
right, but we haven't learned how to get along yet. We haven't learned how to connect that culture. That's so people say American culture, a lot of it, their tattooing is about rebels and this and this because we were built off of being rebels. We broke away from England, we came over to America, we killed all the Native Americans. Like it was all about being rebels to everything that it was, but it was the death, it was the growth of everything and things are moving on. But now it's time, and America is getting to a point where we've been America long enough to where emotionally as a country we could start to settle ourselves and mature into an actual mature culture where pretty soon our tattooing is going to have a significance of its own, and it will have that is deep as the Polynesians. We just haven't grown up yet.
Wow. Wow. That's that's deep. I mean, I know I've said that phrase quite often, and to be honest, I'm probably going to say it quite more. You know, I'm sure that's going to that'll be one of the catchphrases. That's deep, because that's deep. That's all I can say. I mean, that's it's a lot to take in, and I mean, you take it in not just in your head but in your heart.
Right.
And you're what you're saying is spot on. And I definitely, I'm excited to learn about all the different types of Polynesian tattoos and the history behind it. And I can't wait for those episodes. I think that'll be really cool as well.
Yeah, everybody needs to go and stick around to go and you know hang out and listen to all these podcasts because there's gonna be some great information, good stuff, and just the understanding behind things. To me, it's that just if we can understand why things were, how things were, and now what's changed and how it's moved, then we can in itself change how it's moving forward. You know what I mean? And how
Yeah.
we can grow. You know, and I think that's just gonna be freaking phenomenal, brother. It's gonna be awesome.
All right, man. I enjoyed our conversation as always, and I can't wait to keep this going. Um, I'm so appreciative that you've agreed to do this with me, and as we're gonna say, much love, man. Much love.
Much love, brother. Much love. Thank you for the opportunity, brother. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for everything, brother. And yeah, I'm super excited to move forward. You know, because this is the knowledge that we grow and learn in life. But like my grandmother says, he who has knowledge has the responsibility to pass it, and it's time to pass it.